Healthcare and senior care is fraught with problems and challenges, but we're also seeing some amazing new clinical treatments and resources. This show will help illuminate and uncover the good, bad, the ugly in order to equip patients, families, and other healthcare providers. Welcome to Senior Care Confidential.
We are talking about Ozempic and senior weight loss. I am so excited about this topic. I am a senior. I am 62, and I'm in that category. And I found out that Medicare has been prohibited for paying for weight loss medications since 2003. It's been categorized alongside treatments for hair loss, fertility, and erectile dysfunction. So there has been lots of popularity with Ozempic, and 1 in every 8 adults is currently taking some type of weight loss medication. And so we're talking today about Ozempic and these other weight loss drugs. And we've got an awesome guest. She's a registered nurse. She's been a nurse for 14 years, working in the senior industry in the ER and also as a case manager. I want to welcome Leslie Williamson.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And then, of course, we're here with my awesome co-host, Brian Harmon, physical therapist with Nexus. I am honored to be with you guys today. Thank you for taking the time, and let's get started. So the other day, there was a news story with Dr. Mark Siegel, who's out from LA. He's a contributing physician to some of the TV stations. Anyway, he just did a news story on Ozempic. And in Los Angeles, the use is up 162% since 2022.
Wow.
That is 1 in 8 Americans are currently taking Ozempic or a similar medication. So what he was saying too was, like states like New York, it's a lot harder to get the Ozempic that quickly. You can get it through a doctor. He said you can get it like every block of LA. Somebody is selling Ozempic. So we just want to talk about our senior population and how could Ozempic, if it was approved, how we feel as nurses and a physical therapist, the benefits of weight loss as a senior. So I know we see in the news, there are lots of celebrities that are on this medication, or we assume they're on. And one is Kelly Clarkson. You know, you all have noticed she just looks fabulous. Oprah, of course, she did a 60-minute primetime news story on Ozempic. And Oprah has been very open about her weight her entire professional life. And she was with Weight Watchers. But for her, what she found with working out, with Weight Watchers, with counting carbs, she still needed more help. And Ozempic was the thing that made the difference for her. And she's very open about it. Kelly Osbourne, Adele, Randy Jackson, Sharon Osbourne. So many celebrities we're seeing now on TV have dramatic weight loss. And one can only assume that they are combining diet, exercise, and medication to achieve these results. So not everybody has the luxury of a private trainer or a personal chef. So we're talking today about, Leslie, what are your thoughts on Ozempic?
I think it's wonderful when I watch my friends, because I'm in that 40, to 50 year age range where perimenopause sits in, and we start seeing our bodies changing, and it's harder to lose that weight or just be healthy, right? In a body that we feel good in. And I think Ozempic is a catalyst, right? It gets the journey started for some people that have had such a hard struggle at even trying to lose weight, because it's not easy. You have to be so dedicated to count carbs. You have to be dedicated to that meal planning, because it's not a matter of what's for dinner tonight. It's this is what we're doing for protein, for carbs, for all of this. And I think Ozempic, if you're in it for the long run and you're educated and you know that like a pound a week, half a pound a week, and you're in it for, 2 years and you're going to do a lifestyle that you want to live forever, it's going to take forever to get all that weight off, to start seeing the muscles that I'm building. And Ozempic helps, right? Because it sheds it.
Speeds it along.
Yeah, it does. And it's a motivator.
Well, I understand you've had a struggle with weight and you've lost 50 pounds. So tell us about your journey.
Yeah. So after my second child, I was 35 as a geriatric pregnancy. I love calling it that. So, but with that pregnancy, I gained 80 pounds, which put me way over the amount that I should have been. And for half the pregnancy, I was still in the ER, which as a nurse, you walk anywhere from 9,000 to 13,000 steps in the ER, probably more than that, depending on where you are, right? With pregnancy, they sat me in triage and I sat down and I was so sick with him and just had a lot of struggles with that pregnancy older than my 30-year-old pregnancy, And so with that weight gain, here comes the baby. Here comes the stress of 2 kids now. I have heard that if I had had a third one, it might have been a little easier, but the second one's a game changer. For those of us that have children, we know that. If you were blessed with a second one. And my dad had a stroke. There just was all these things that just piled up to where I could not put myself first. I just couldn't. I had to. I was doing nights in the ER, which is also hard for your metabolism and all of that. Plus I've got this newborn baby, plus I've got this 5-year-old that needs me. And so there just wasn't any time for meal planning and working out. And I got to the point where I needed some help, mental health wise, right? Because I'm going through all these struggles. And I got onto some medicine that helped me that I'd always fought. I tried to do alternatives to. And it got me to the point where I was motivated, right? I could get up and be the person that I wanted to be in my head. So I actually had action. And with that, I stopped all alcohol, because it would interfere with the medication anyways. And I started riding my bike and just getting out for that 30 minutes, because my husband would say, it's just going to be 30 minutes. That's it. Like, what do you do in 30 minutes that you don't even think about? Now let's do it. 30 minutes, I got out on my bike. I didn't even try to sweat. I just leisurely rode around, let the wind blow through my helmet hair. And I started seeing it come off. I was also, before that, I tried to start doing keto. I bought like these meal plans that would get shipped to me, and it was mush. It was awful. It was so awful. It was just mush on my plate, just a different type of mush with some different meat. And so that was a struggle. Through the holidays, I just tried to not gain weight because I love pie. I just do. December comes around and I'm just like, just maintain, like don't gain.
So as far as the 50 pounds, how long did it take you to lose that?
2 years of riding my bike. I got motivated. I started weightlifting, and COVID helped, because what else did we have to do? Or what else did we have but time?
I know.
And there were 2 clubs, either people got really active or not with COVID.
So just some statistics here. 29% of Americans over 65 have some form of diabetes. With insurance will not cover Ozempic or the other medications that are similar unless you're diabetic. So just to share, a bariatric surgery is going to be $26,000 to $30,000. Ozempic, you'd have to pay out of pocket. So I'm going to be super open. I've been taking it, and I've been on it for about 9 months, and I have lost weight very slowly. I have a doctor that I'm working with. I see every week to 10 days. I've lost 25 pounds. But then I have a friend who's in her early 50s and she's been on it. She's had higher doses, I guess. And she has lost 30 pounds in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
So, but obesity is an epidemic in the United States. 15 million older adults are obese. That represents 1 in 4 adults. So I feel like if we can get this weight loss off, you can feel better. What are your thoughts, Brian, as a physical therapist?
So I think some of the benefit of using a drug like Ozempic is there's a thermostat over time that our body gets tuned into. So whatever that looks like, whether it's, 1,600 calories or 2,500 calories, whatever, there's a thermostat that says this is the number of calories where you can maintain. And, your body, if you eat relatively the same way, you'll find, so like I'm relatively lean. I can have a few cheat meals out of the week and my body will maintain the same body weight no matter what, because it knows when I have the bad foods to ramp up the metabolism some, to burn that back off and then come right back down. And so I think where it's helpful with some drugs like Ozempic is it helps to fix some of that thermostat issue, because if you're already set kind of low, or if your thermostat for weight is kind of set high or your metabolism is kind of set low, it may help you on the early part of your weight loss journey to help remove some of that and kind of get you moving faster. Because we all know, like, part of the fitness and weight loss stuff, I shouldn't say a part of it, I would say a large part of it is behavior and psychology. It really is. Like the mechanics of exercise, and you talk to me a lot, like there's a lot of details in this stuff, but there's some real basic stuff. And really what it boils down to is a lot of psychology and behavior. And I think a lot of people could be benefited by having a faster, quick start. Because the best way to get somebody, treating in therapy, if I can get them some early wins fast, they're bought in for the long term, right? It's the challenge is when we have somebody who's slowly progressing, to try to keep them interested and motivated over the long haul. But if I can get them some fast wins, then they're motivated extra for the long term. So I think that's where these kind of drugs, these type of drugs can help. The other thing I find interesting about the Ozempics is, I know we're going to talk about the effects on Alzheimer's and those kind of things. And this goes back to our conversation I think I had with you a few weeks ago on that Good Energy book, the whole mitochondrial health thing. And it's interesting that if you look at how Ozempic works, it really is it's starting to, one, it curbs your appetite. It drives up insulin production, which I think metformin does too. But so it does a number of different things in your digestive tract to help limit the number of, we'll say calories, but more importantly, probably bad calories. Because what we talked about is, what is it? I forget how many trillions of pounds or tons of pounds of food, tons of pounds, how many tons of food we eat in a lifetime. But something like 70% of those are ultra processed foods. And so if you're taking something like an Ozempic and you're automatically limiting the number of those bad foods, well, that's fewer harmful chemicals, if we will, that are getting in your body that are having to be processed either through your digestive tract or through your cells, that's causing this systemic inflammation that may be contributing to a lot of these other things. We even talked before about Alzheimer's being considered now diabetes 3. Because they're starting to see that there's a huge impact on blood sugars and what's happening at the brain. And so I think, I know we'll talk about it in a second, but that's where I think the Ozempic thing could be a big help in a lot of cases. Because I think you said it's in mild or moderate cognitive changes where they're starting to see a profound improvement.
Which is great. So I will say, for me, I grew up Southern Baptist. I love sweets and love sweets after every meal. And so what I have found and I am not craving the sugar that I used to crave. Yeah. And it's interesting. I took the month of July off. I was out of town for the month with grandkids, and that ice cream sounded good. And let's see, whose birthday is it today? Why don't we make some cupcakes? So
it's your birthday eve. Let's have some cupcakes.
Let's have sweets. And tomorrow. I found myself, wow, it really does. You think about the sweets and things you love. It's that comfort food. Yeah. And with the shots, I haven't felt that. And I don't know what the reasoning for that is.
Yeah, you mentioned that. And I tried to do some quick research on that to see there seems to be, and I could be way off, I'm just spitballing here, but there seems to be an indication of the Ozempic does something with a dopamine receptor or something where the effects that you normally get from that sugar high are blunted. And so there's like less of a desire to have something like that.
Full. Like
Yeah.
if you eat
Yeah.
sweets, it's like, ugh, I can't
Right.
eat anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's great. I love that. So just talking about obesity and the risk factors for many chronic conditions. And so just talk about cardiac, cardiac disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, anything else you guys can think of, just other health issues.
They're starting to see that a lot of these things are related to, the mitochondrial health, which is a lot of the stuff that we talked about last time, which is it's nutrition, it's sunlight, it's breathing, it's managing stress. Stress is a major factor here.
Absolutely.
And lack of sleep, all those kind of things. So there's all these like dials that you can turn to help improve your overall metabolism and lower systemic inflammation. But for sure, like one of the major things outside of stress is like our nutrition. Like, how are we eating? What are we eating? We live in a fast-paced environment, and so getting things quick. I'm guilty of it too. There are nights where you're like, I just don't have time to cook. And so, even if you go to a restaurant and you're eating the lean stuff, like you don't know what they're actually cooking it with. My stomach gets upset almost every time I go to dinner because whatever oils or something is not what I'm used to eating.
Well, and the restaurants that have the calorie count, I love those because you are seeing, even Chick-fil-A, I love Chick-fil-A, but like, whoa,
I'm going to choose
salad versus a sandwich.
There's a lot of things I don't eat anymore.
Think. Yeah. I know. So
my favorite meal used to be the Cheesecakery. This is not a commercial for them, but Cheesecakery, the Cheesecake Factory. You ever heard of the factory burrito?
No,
we actually went there a few months ago. They don't offer it anymore. That sucker was like this big. It was like 2,600 calories. Yeah. And once they put the calorie thing on there, I was like, I never had another one.
I know. So I mean, just think about all that food. We don't need it. So other things that obesity can cause is depression, isolation. I remember I was a brand new nurse and at Parkland, and I had a patient that was 750 pounds and she was young. She was in her 30s, but all she did was cry. And it just broke my heart. It had to have been so embarrassing for her took four of us to turn her. It was awful. But so isolation and then difficulty with simple tasks.
Well, let's go back to the isolation because we did talk. We noticed a lot of this during the COVID area, especially with seniors, because everyone was closed up in their senior living rooms. We weren't able to go visit them as clinicians, and so we saw a huge uptick in anxiety and depression going through COVID and even afterwards. And so I think part of the obesity thing with them is it's not necessarily the isolation thing. It's you're no longer. The activities that once brought you joy, you're either one, no longer able to do, or they don't bring you joy anymore because you can't do them anymore. And I think that's probably what a lot of what causes the depression isolation piece, which goes in your next comment about now you're stopping to be able to even do like the normal functioning things of an adult should be able to do.
And that's grief.
Yeah, like standing up to do meal preparation. Yeah. Like, maybe your knees bother you or your joints and you just can't stand that long or you get short of breath or
going to the shopping, going to the supermarket and having to shop, right? Like, are you able to walk those?
Yeah.
Well, they're saying, and it's funny. Sometimes studies can be. I think a lot of time. I think a lot of times studies are more inferred. So they did some studies on the knee joint and how much pressure is actually in a knee joint. And I've seen statistics that are kind of all over the map. The accepted one is somewhere between 2 to 3 times your body weight every time you take a step. So if you're 300 pounds, that's 600 to 700 pounds of pressure through your knee joint all the time. It's interesting because nobody's putting a sensor. They actually did this on an ACL one time years ago, and because of the pain response, it actually throws off the actual results of the study. But I imagine that one.
Really?
Yeah, a little hook in the knee and pull that sucker. Yeah, there's no muscle guarding at all. That's thrown off that study. But the accepted range is 2 to 3 times their body weight, and so even a 50-pound weight loss for somebody could be massive in getting them back to function if they're dealing with hip or knee arthritis.
I know. Yeah. So, and then financial, the medical spending for treating illnesses and, with these Medicare Advantage plans. some of the copays are ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, I had a patient that had an EKG. It was $130 copay, and he was just livid. He was like, I thought Medicare paid for this, but he's got an Advantage plan. And so he had to have an EKG. He had to have an echo. That was $150 copay. So you're paying for these things, even though you have Medicare and insurance. It's still money out of pocket, and processed foods, a box of cereal is $9 now, when a canister of oatmeal is $3. So, just stay away from those processed foods and you can save some money, so those were kind of things too, the financial. So seniors with obesity are twice as likely to have issues of tasks of daily living than the average adult. So the medical spending for treating illnesses and symptoms related to obesity among adults of all age is high. This accounted for $27 billion in 1998. That was the most recent that I could find. So imagine.
So roughly $30 billion due to obesity in
98,
25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So imagine what the cost is now.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not try this? So let's talk about Ozempic and what it does. It curbs the appetite. It reduces comfort eating, and then it mimics that naturally occurring hormone. And can you talk about that some more, Brian?
The satiety.
Satiety.
Yes. So there's a hormone that tells your body to stop eating, which is probably turned off with a lot of our foods, which is why we tend to overeat. So if you eat really clean, fish, meat, whatever, and vegetables, you will find that you will fill it very quickly. But if you eat, chips and the trash on the inside part of the supermarket, you find that you can eat. I mean, I can eat a full pizza in one sitting, but give me like 16 ounces of a steak and I can't make it halfway through it. And so the reason for that is because I think it's called leptin. I'm almost certain it's called with a P, but it's a hormone that gets secreted in your body that tells your body to stop eating. Because you're approaching fullness, and a lot of the medication, a lot of the foods that we eat, rather, are designed to kind of turn that off, and so it keeps you overeating. Well, where Ozempic helps is it helps with that satiety type feeling where you start to feel more full earlier, and so you'll naturally limit how much food you're bringing in.
It's funny. It reminds me of when I worked as a cocktail waitress, and we extra salted the peanuts and the chips so that they would order more drinks. So it's kind of the same thing.
You're to blame.
I know, it's me. Sorry.
It's actually, and it's not just satiety. So it also, because you're digesting slower, you don't get that dump of sugar, right? And then you crash. Yeah. So that's where the diabetic part of it and the
they've had some, I think you and I have talked about this before. They've had some guys who've worn those continuous glucose monitors, and they've tried to eat like the same stuff. They've changed like what time they eat, and they've changed the sequence of the foods that they eat. And what they found was when they ate the protein on their plate first, followed by the potatoes or the rice, they had less of a blood sugar spike. Which is interesting. It's like a sample size of like 3 guys I follow. But it's interesting.
That's very interesting.
If you eat the protein first, because it comes, I don't know if it's a bolus is the right term, but because it sits heavy in your stomach, it doesn't allow the easy stuff to be broken down to pass through and spike your sugar.
I don't know how much science that is, but it sounds good.
I don't know.
It sounds good.
Yeah. It's on Twitter, so it's got to be true.
Sure.
So to follow up with all this, so what should a senior do? If a senior wants Ozempic, they need to ask their doctor.
Right.
They may have to pay privately, and that's okay. We were looking when we were doing, I know a guy. We were doing research, and some doctors are charging up to $1,200 a month. I'm not seeing that in Dallas, Texas.
No, I know a few people on it that were paying nowhere near that.
Yeah.
And they're not paying through insurance.
Yeah.
And I think, so here's the other crazy thing too. I know that the Treatment for Obesity and Something Act of 2023 is now moved through committee as of last month. Well,
it is
6 weeks ago.
Treat and Reduce Obesity Act.
There you go.
Of June 2023.
Right. They've been trying to work on this one for like 11 years, and it's finally passed committee. So it's actually looks like it's going to make it to the floor. Who knows if it'll actually make it to the floor before the change. But one of the things that they quote against this is the $1,000 price tag monthly for Ozempic. And we were talking before the show. I don't know anybody paying anywhere near that.
Me
now it's
either.
it's out of pocket. So it's not like your insurance paying. So maybe if insurance is paying for it, thank you PBMs. If insurance is paying for it, they're going to hit the Medicare fund for $1,000. But if you're cash paying for this stuff, it's not doing that from what we're seeing.
I know.
And
I know.
Yeah.
So key things, what our seniors still need to exercise. You talked about weight training. Everybody, I need to do weight training. Everybody needs to do weight training. What about processed foods? We need to just try to stop eating all that processed food.
That outside aisle of the market, right?
Outside
Not the
aisle only.
Inside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the basic thing. We went to Greece for a couple weeks, a couple months ago. And it's funny when you look at the packaging on like the breads and anything that's in the supermarket, they've got half the ingredients that we have here. And because the European Union has outlawed them. And so we allow them here, but they're allowed over there. And I'll tell you, I shared this with you before. Now I ate a ton of food there. We also walked a lot, but I lost 2 pounds on vacation.
I know.
On a honeymoon.
I know. We went on that Christmas cruise. We went in Europe, and what I found interesting was the desserts were not sweet. Because to my standards,
Southern Baptist sweet.
There's not Southern Baptist sweet. That's right.
So
But
increased.
and they were good, but I was like, wow, we eat a lot of sugar.
And it's portion control too. Like their portions are so much smaller.
Oh, I had big portions.
Okay, let's get back over to you, Brian. But I think too, the culture of, at least from my experience, the culture of going to the market every day for fresh food to cook. I don't do that.
Right.
I have a freezer in my garage
Right.
to freeze leftover meals that I can prep quickly, and what's that doing to all the nutrients? At least we're eating. I know,
but you've got a family, you work, you've got kids. I mean, you've got a busy, for you, that's going to work. And, you're not going to have time to make fresh bread, homemade bread. But another thing, the Mediterranean diet, really doctors, I know, have so many doctor friends that love the Mediterranean diet for seniors. Brian, can you share what that is?
Yeah, it's essentially a high vegetable, moderate protein. If you're going to get your carbs, you're going to get from fruits and vegetables. You're not getting it from breads and pastas and those kind of things. That's kind of essentially what it is. Olive oil has some
good fats, right?
Some really healthy fats. You got to make sure you're getting it from the right places. But like the extra virgin olive oil is what we use for all of our cooking stuff. There's some really interesting, and when you go to Greece, olive oil is like everywhere because their olive trees it's just beautiful. And so like we brought back olive oil, like lotions, whatever. It's supposed to do great things for wrinkles. I'll let you know.
Oh, hello.
Yes. So olive oil has some other anti-inflammatory properties to it, apparently. So that's kind of what the Mediterranean thing is. Lots of tomatoes and cucumbers and olives and onions and those kind of things. So it's usually it's fairly light. You can fill up on them.
And that's what Dr. Siegel was saying. Skip the butter and the saturated fats and go with olive oil. Just use olive oil. Also, don't keep those comfort foods in your home. If you don't keep chips, just save them for a rainy day. No, just don't buy them. Buy healthier snacks. Join a gym. So many senior centers. I know my church that I go to offers free workouts. They've got trainers, exercise. We've got a pickleball league at our church starting up. The senior centers are either free or very low cost. I know Frisco is $5 a month for seniors. I mean, it's just
there was an interesting study that just came out. I shared with our therapy team. I think it was last week, and they looked at dosing, like exercise dosing. So when you're talking, different bodies require something different, depending on what your goals are, right? So if you're lifting for muscle mass or aesthetics, you're gonna have a different muscle exercise dosing than if you're just lifting for like power, right? So if you look at the power lifters, they're not lean, right? They're usually a little on the heavier side, but they're freakishly strong, right? If you look at the bodybuilders, they're lifting a lot of weight, but they're not lifting powerlifting weight. Like it's just different. So when we're talking about like in a senior's case, usually what you see recommended is just kind of a generic thing of 3 to 4 times a week of progressive resistance exercise. You can use some bands, you can use some dumbbells, you can use your body weight. And it's interesting. This study came out and showed that it really didn't matter how intensive it was.
Wow.
So you could actually make an improvement with as little as twice a week.
Yeah.
So we used to think it was like 3 or 4 times a week, for 30 minutes or so of some sort of resistance training. But they showed in their study that it actually had this much, like the marginal utility to go up in intensity wasn't there.
So what would you say for me, a 62, what kind of weight should I start with?
Well, so I would look at it as you need multiple things. So the mitochondrial health is a very, very big thing, especially as we get older. Those little batteries inside of all your cells. Right. So you want to make sure that you're hitting those things too. That's zone 2 exercise. It's very lightweight, very light aerobic activity. Something as simple as walking a few times a week for about 30 minutes.
Well, I know at Pure Barre, because I was going to Pure Barre a lot. I haven't gone in a while, but we did weights. It was like 10 minutes of weights. So you want to get some cardiovascular activity in at a very low heart rate, because of other effects on the body. And then, this isn't a perfect world. So you would do that. You'd probably lift, three times a week, probably minimum, for both upper and lower body. And that's with resistance training. And then the other thing that they recommend, and this is another thing you have to kind of run through your cardiologist, is they recommend high intensity interval training, which is really hard, but only twice a week. So it'll take you, 8 to 12 minutes twice a week.
This all sounds so good.
Yes.
I think that it's a matter of having
That's why
grace.
I said ideal.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of having grace and just do something, right? Because
Agreed.
that's how you get started. And then it's the momentum because you're feeling better from
but
the dopamine.
I will say, when you step on that scale and you see you've lost 5 pounds and you've lost 10 pounds, it is awesome. And it encourages you, wow, my clothes are, not fitting anymore. It's so nice.
It is nice.
Go shopping.
Let me go
so
do some more.
if you only had time for one thing, I would say walk.
Yes.
If you had time for 2 things, I would say walk and lift some weights. And if you had time for all 3, I would say do all 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I did it.
Yeah. I want to finish up too by saying, do not buy this stuff that's on the internet. Find a doctor. We can help you find a doctor. Go see a doctor. I know there are a lot of people selling it, and I've seen ads on Facebook. It's
going to be all over.
There's some that are not legit.
No.
And
is it knockoffs?
They're knockoffs.
Like Louis Vuitton purse.
Yeah. So you want your doctor. And if your doctor says no, they know your body. They know your kidney function. Get some labs done. Just say, show me why. What is it that you're concerned about? So, that's just all I have to say on that. But did you have another comment, Leslie?
No, I was just going to jump into there's so many exercises on YouTube, right? And they're free. And you can even put in I have to put in knee sparing exercises to be able to do these HIIT workouts and things like that. That's it. And I just think don't get overwhelmed, because this is what we get projected at us all the time, right?
Yeah.
And the key is just get up and
that's
do
why I said
something.
Earlier was the psychological thing, the behavioral thing is a huge thing. And so you are going to set yourself up for failure if you go full bore in it, because you're going to burn yourself out. So you're probably better off, or hurt a knee. So you're probably better off actually easing yourself into it. And there's a reason why, if you have an Apple Watch, they have those circles, those rings that you're supposed to fill in.
I know.
Because they
they
gamify it, because it feels good to close the loops.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you can close the loops, if you can set yourself up for, hey, you know what? This month, I'm just going to start walking 3 days a week. Awesome. Close the loop. And then next month, as you start feeling better, maybe add in a day or 2 of lifting, right? And so you can kind of ease into it that way. But if you say, I'm going to do what Brian says and do, HIIT and walk
all the way in.
And forget it.
Let's go.
You're going to last about a week, and you call me up and you're sore, and
I know.
It won't work.
I know. Thank you guys so much. This has been a great topic. If you want to reach us, you can always reach Nexus Home Health. They're awesome. What's your number, Brian?
Phone number is 469-317-3017.
And, I am a nurse navigator, concierge nurse navigator. So if you're needing help just trying to decide what to do for your loved one that may be in the hospital, or maybe it's time for hospice or home health and just needs some support and just get some questions answered, I can always help with Joy Care Management, 214-415-3779. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for
and
having
I
me.
hope y'all have a great day.
Thanks.